Already down two of their best defensive linemen, the Seahawks will also be without Riq the Freak on Thursday Night Football. How will they replace him in their secondary against the 49ers? We'll be breaking it all down in a special Game Plan Wednesday here on the Locked On Seahawks podcast.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And for those of you that tuned into the original stream, hey, this is take two, and this time we're going to make it count. Internet at the hotel decided to go a little bit haywire, but knock on wood, we think we have everything corrected. A special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you are in Auburn, Washington, or Fresno, California. A special thanks, and thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. The Seahawks will look back at getting into the win column again after losing back-to-back games, coming in at 3-2 against the 2-3 49ers on Thursday Night Football. We've got a game plan for victory we're going to devise on offense and defense, our picks to click, predictions, and much more. In a jam-packed episode brought your way by our friends at Prize Picks. Download the app and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Now for your lead story here on our Game Plan Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Going into Wednesday's practice, the Seahawks already knew they were going to be without Byron Murphy II and Uchenna Nwosu. Now you can add another high-profile defender that will not be suiting up against the 49ers on Thursday night. Riq Woolen ruled out in the final injury report on Wednesday due to an ankle sprain that he suffered on Sunday. Obviously, Rob, one of the biggest defensive playmakers the Seahawks have, an incredible athlete, one of their best players on that side of the football. This is undoubtedly a big loss going against the 49ers. And now Mike Macdonald's got to figure out what he's going to do to replace him. Do you go with an experienced veteran like Artie Burns, who you can promote off the practice squad, or do you throw your fifth-round pick Nehemiah Pritchett into the fire after he made a few plays? After he checked in for Woolen on Sunday? It's really an interesting dynamic going into this primetime game.
Yeah, I think to me, it's one of the most dynamic elements of this game is that Mike Macdonald's got to make a massive decision here. Look, Nehemiah Pritchett was a very effective player at Auburn, and he went up against some spectacular players, but none of them had the straight line speed of a Brandon Ayuk or the game-breaking ability that Deebo Samuel possesses, with all due respect to everybody that he was facing in the SEC. This is just going to be big-time football on national stage. It's not the ideal scenario where you want to be starting a day 3 NFL draft selection. So this is going to be a fascinating decision here. And, it's not only Riq Woolen, who is on the injury report for the Seahawks. And again, Riq Woolen is out for this game. Mike Macdonald acknowledged as much today during his press conference. It's also concerning the Seahawks have 2 other pass rushers. We know Uchenna Nwosu is going to be out. That's a given. But now Boye Mafe and Derek Hall, of course, are also each struggling with injuries, a knee and a hamstring, respectively. And because of that fact, that it just makes it that much more concerning for the Seahawks about what they're going to be able to do. They are obviously going to be limited in the amount of healthy bodies that they have. Are they also going to be looking at practice squad adjustments and making some players active, to potentially replace those 2 players? And it's not just about the pass rush. That's what everybody always thinks about first, I think, when you're talking about outside linebackers in this system. It's very much about the run defense. And so while I'm intrigued by the pass rush ability, say, for example, that Jamie Sheriff has provided, I also think that the Seahawks might have to look at some of the players that they have on the active roster, some of the bigger bodies that be possible replacements for either Mafe or for Derek Hall, should either or both not be available to the Seahawks on Thursday night.
If you're looking for a silver lining here, at least the good news was that when we spoke to Mike Macdonald today, it sounded like the Seahawks were confident that Mafe and Hall were going to be able to play in this game. The other player that's listed as questionable, though, this was the one that actually popped up today that could be worrisome for the Seahawks. That's Julian Love, who is nursing a hamstring injury. And Mike Macdonald made it sound like they're going to be going all the way up to kickoff to make that decision on whether he's going to be able to go or not. And these hamstring injuries are always tricky, but if Julian Love can't play in this game, we saw what happened the second half against Detroit when he was out of the game. The consistent assignment breakdowns in coverage, the communication issues, those are things that they had a lot of trouble with when they didn't have their leader in the secondary out there patrolling in center field. If Love's not playing, now you're probably playing Kobe Bryant. That's who got most of the snaps in the second half in that game in Detroit. In his place, it's a big drop-off, and that takes away one of your cornerback options. I thought it might be potentially a situation where Kobe Bryant could move back down in the slot a little bit if needed to, but if he's starting at safety, you certainly can't do that. So that is another injury to keep a really close eye on, and we don't know whether or not Julian Love's going to play. If I had to predict, I think that he's going to, but these are all injuries that are significant ones for the Seahawks, and trying to figure out how they're going to navigate this, whether it's having Artie Burns come up and play in the slot, or whether they have Witherspoon play the slot exclusively and Nehemiah Pridge is playing the outside. Is Kobe Bryant or Kayvon Wallace going to be playing that other safety spot next to Rayshawn Jenkins? You have a lot of moving parts, and that's not necessarily what you want to hear going into a game against the San Francisco 49ers. But I guess another silver lining is the 49ers are doing the same thing on their roster right now.
Well, and they are. And I want to just kind of finish up that thought about the Seahawks for just a moment. Let's just kind of, play the game, string this out conversation as far as if Julian Love is not able to play, whether it be Kobe Bryant or whether it be Kayvon Wallace. Still, just think about the lack of experience the Seahawks would be then starting in the defensive backfield. I mean, Kobe Bryant is going to be your longest tenured player at that point, along with Trey Brown, who, of course, struggled against the New York Giants. Devin Witherspoon is a spectacular player, but still, he's in year 2. Rayshawn Jenkins is a good football player, a 30-year-old veteran who obviously is coming off of a splashy performance with the fumble return for a touchdown a week ago, but still, he is a new Seahawk. Kayvon Wallace is a new Seahawk. If you're going to bring up somebody like a Ty Okada from the practice squad, we kind of pitched that idea about possibly moving up some players before. Again, that is what is so concerning about this injury report for the Seahawks. And it's not unexpected. Of course, this is a Thursday game. The Seahawks' third game in 10 days. But at the same time, these are key injuries, the key positions against an offense that is as dynamic, despite what their statistics say. The 49ers offense has not been nearly as good this year as it's been the last couple of seasons with Brock Purdy under center. But at the same time, it is very concerning. As you said, there is some silver linings to these dark clouds, however, for the Seahawks, and that is the San Francisco 49ers are having their own injury issues. And so that it remains to be seen if some of their best players, George Kittle sounds like he's going to play, Fred Warner sounds like he is going to play, but as we talked about before, Talanoa Hufanga, one of their absolute best players, a safety for the 49ers, he is absolutely out for this football game with some wrist injury, and so it remains to be seen who of the other 49ers are going to be available for them against the Seahawks.
And we already know the 49ers are going to be missing some key guys that are still on injured reserve or the PUP list. Javon Hargrave's out for the year. Christian McCaffrey's not playing in this game. So the 49ers are going to be the last that are going to be sympathetic to the Seahawks for having some injuries that they are dealing with. So neither one of these teams is at full strength, but I do think what is going on in the secondary bears watching. I want to see, in my opinion, I think Artie Burns should be the first one that is out there just because of the experience aspect. I think asking Nehemiah Pritchett to come in and defend against Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Jawan Jennings in his first career start, I think that's asking for trouble for the youngster, but maybe Mike McDonald's more confident in the rookie than what we are. And who knows what he's going to choose to do. If Julian Love's out, that just adds another wrinkle that this coaching staff's going to have to try to navigate going up against the 49ers offense that still has plenty of weapons. We shall find out 90 minutes before the game tomorrow who all is going to be suiting up. And then once it unfolds, we'll get an idea who is going to be out there as the Seahawks look to get back in the win column. How do they get into the win column? It's time for our game plan. That'll be coming up next. Offense and defense, a little bit of X's and O's, a little bit of game planning, how Seattle gets back in the win column. We'll get to that up next here on our Game Plan Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. And unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live, and Prize Picks is the place to get the real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. Prize Picks invented the Plex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Seahawks podcast, Game Plan Wednesday edition. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thanks for tuning in and making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. For your second listen, don't forget to check out the brand new Locked On NFL. It's now 2 episodes a day. First, you got the madman himself, Tyler Rowland, kicking it off in the morning with a double shot of NFL Espresso. And then, of course, the barber, Tony Wiggins, for some real NFL talk. Add in Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, and detailed breakdowns all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL twice a day. Make it your second listen on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. The Seahawks looking to get back in the win column. They've lost 2 straight to the Lions and the Giants. They're still clinging to a 1-game lead in the NFC West. And coming to town, the bitter rivals that they are, the San Francisco 49ers, they are desperate too. They're coming off their 3rd loss in 5 games. This is a must-win, really, for both teams for slightly different reasons, but a critical game in the NFC West here in the early stages of the season. Rob, when we look at the Seahawks on offense coming into this game against the 49ers, there's a few things that jump out when you look at San Francisco's first 5 games. And it's ironic because we've discussed the last couple of days Ryan Grubb's comments about not getting the run game going and being accountable for that, not calling enough run plays, not getting Ken Walker III involved. The 49ers right now are 24th in the NFL in yards per attempt. Now, teams have not had a ton of success in terms of total rushing, but the attempts are there in terms of effectiveness. This feels like a game, particularly in the interior, with Javon Hargrave being out. Eric Armstead's no longer in San Francisco. The interior feels like an area that the Seahawks can get this run game going and get some traction for some balance on offense.
I 100% agree with you. This is a 49ers defense that, I kind of made the joke before in yesterday's show that, sound like Winston Churchill, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. The 49ers defense has a heck of a reputation. It's damn near frightening, but the statistics and the tape don't suggest that it is nearly as frightening as that reputation would suggest. As you just alluded to, the 49ers are allowing 4.7 yards per rushing attempt. Just knowing the fact that the Seahawks sound very much recommitted to the run, knowing that this is a home game, knowing that Kenneth Walker should be as fresh as he's ever going to get in the regular season. Zach Charbonnet is going to be running angrily against the 49ers squad that at least I had read reports earlier was one of his absolute favorite teams growing up. So there's going to be some passion there from the UCLA the California native. I do think that this is something that the Seahawks should very much try to exploit, at least test. Fred Warner is coming off of injury himself. And look, he is a terrific player and a tough guy as well. Devondre Campbell, the other inside linebacker for the 49ers, was a very good player for the Green Bay Packers, but he has not been as effective for San Francisco. He actually leads the team in missed tackles so far this season. And so I do think that this is something that the Seahawks should try to attack. And as much problems that the Seattle has had at the guard position, that's obviously been a huge bugaboo. The Dexter Lawrence just went off against them in pass protection. Seattle's guards are better moving forward. Most guards in the NFL are. And so just allow the big guys to come off the ball with their heads and shoulders down and move downhill. And I do think that is going to be the best recipe for success if the Seahawks are going to be able to get this victory on Thursday night.
And you got to hope you can get that run game going to create opportunities in play action. And I know that there are analytics experts out there that say you don't need to run the ball well to make play action work. That may be the case, but you still got to have a run game. Like, if you are never running the football, and we saw this in the second half, were the Giants going to bite on a play fake? Absolutely not, because they didn't expect the Seahawks were going to run the ball. They hadn't been running the ball. If you can get that run game going, at least enough where the 49ers have to pay attention to it and they have to respect it, that's where those play action passes are going to start to hit. And in particular, you've got some guys that could be rats that you can go after in that play action game. Campbell is one of them. This year, he has had some issues giving up some plays down the seams. Not the best athlete at this stage of his career at the linebacker position. You can get running backs and tight ends on him and create separation. And Malik Mustafa at safety really is an athletic guy, but his change of direction skills are not quite as good. And he has a tendency to get a little bit too aggressive, and he will bite on those play fakes at times. We saw it on his college film. And again, I loved him at Wake Forest. I thought he was a really good draft prospect, but that was one of the negatives that I had down in his report. And there's been a few plays that you've seen that so far in his NFL career. Get the run game going. There are a few guys that you can exploit in this defense in the play action game, and Geno Smith can get some big plays off of it.
Yeah, and going back to college tape, that's one of the things I would say here with Ryan Grubb and the way he calls plays. I really think that wheel routes in particular should be a route that you should be able to get Seattle's running backs involved in this. That's going to likely be carrying the linebackers, perhaps the safeties, not only Malik Mustafa, but Jair Brown as well. Should get them backpedaling quickly. That's going to create plenty of open space in the middle of the field. So whether it be, even if you're just saying the running backs out on wheel routes, just to clear space to create some openings in the middle for the tight ends, or perhaps Jackson Smith and Jigba, perhaps a Jake Bobo, to run those type of crossing routes, to me, that should help clear up the middle. That's going to help make it easier to run the ball. Again, it's going to make it easier for the short to intermediate passing. That should allow Geno Smith to be as successful as a passer and stay upright. So again, the wheel routes to the running backs, I think some short passes down the seam to the tight ends. Again, the middle of the field is one of the areas, whether it be in the running game or in the short passing game, I think the Seahawks should have some chances to make some hay against the 49ers.
As we do on our Game Plan Friday segments today, Game Plan Wednesday, we have a lot of X's and O's, but I feel like on defense in this game that personnel is going to be a huge part of whether or not the Seahawks are able to find success. And what I mean by that is we talked about all the injuries that they are dealing with. You're not going to have Riq Woolen in this game. You're not going to have a Uchenna Nwosu. You're not going to have Byron Murphy II. I want to start in the trenches because I look at San Francisco and the way they like to run the football, the fact that George Kittle's so heavily involved with that with his blocking ability, Kyle Juszczyk. I think you've got to go with a heavier lineup, heavier personnel to combat what the 49ers want to do. So you don't have a Uchenna Nwosu. Instead of giving more snaps to, say, somebody like a Jamie Sheriff. Now, I think Sheriff will get elevated from the practice squad, and I think he's going to get a chance to make his NFL debut or his debut with the Seahawks. He did play in one game with the Panthers earlier this year. But I think you've got to have somebody that can really anchor that edge. And who is specifically coming to mind there? Mike Morris. He's been playing some inside, but there is a really good chance that Cameron Young is going to get activated for this game. We'll see if that actually happens tomorrow, but that would mean you have another bigger body in the defensive tackle position. You can now move Mike Morris out to play that big outside linebacker role and have a 6'5", 300-pound guy that can set a firm edge. He's not going to give you the twitch off the edge as a pass rusher, but in this game, I don't think that's what they need. They need somebody that's going to be able to have some cement in his boots and be able to really set a hard edge and limit the 49ers' ability to bust runs, end up breaking that contain, as we saw way too many times against the Giants last week.
Yeah, no question. And look, again, with all due respect to the Giants and their tackles, they've got some solid players there. It's not the equivalent of Trent Williams, future Hall of Famer. Colton McKivitz at the right tackle position is a quality starter as well. Both of them big body guys that can move people, have both very light feet for such big bodies. That's why I 100% agree with you. I think Mike Morris would make an awful lot of sense as a stand-up outside linebacker in this game in particular. It's not something that he's unaccustomed accustomed to. Heck, I mean, he played some snaps as outside linebacker, stand-up, pass rushing outside linebacker just against the Giants this past week, and did the exact same thing all those years ago. I shouldn't say all those years ago, a couple of years ago at Michigan as well.
Making him sound like he's 80, Rob.
Exactly. I apologize. But, again, that is one of the things that to me is the best element of Mike Morris is his versatility. And as you said, Cameron Young is set to be, whether he is actually promoted up to the active roster in this game or soon thereafter, I do think that Seattle has a lot more flexibility, a lot better healthy depth along the defensive line than they do in the secondary. And so, again, I think that's something that I expect the Seahawks to exploit, to take advantage of a little bit, because, again, the 49ers are a solid offensive line, but they aren't moving people like they have in past years. So again, that is something I think that they can do. And I'm going to flip to just kind of pivot off of this idea. I think that, naturally you want your pass rushers to get after the quarterback and be able to put him on the ground. And Brock Purdy, again, has been sacked more this year for the first 5 games than he was at any 5-game stretch of the 49ers season a year ago, or actually the last 2 years. So again, the 49ers have proven vulnerable in that regard. But I also think that that Brock Purdy is a slippery quarterback. He doesn't necessarily always scramble for yardage, but he can buy time in the pocket. And I think that one of the best things that the Seahawks can do is just try to pin him in. The way that defenses struggled to do that with Russell Wilson back in the day, I think the same kind of thing here. The strategy should be to create a pin and try to keep Brock Purdy in. He's 6'1". And so if you are going to be playing a guy like a Mike Morris at the outside, who's going to be a little bit taller, a little bit longer arms, then get those defensive linemen's hands up. The Seahawks have 3 passes knocked down at the line of scrimmage from their defensive linemen to this point. That's one of the worst numbers in all of the NFL. And you consider you have big-bodied, long-arm guys like Mike Morris, like Leonard Williams. I really do think that is something that can create some turnovers. The sacks are great, but at the same time, a tipped pass that can be intercepted and perhaps returned back for a touchdown, that to me is the type of game-changing plays that Mike Macdonald is famous for. And we'll see if Mike Morris can make himself famous for that as well.
Well, we'll see if you are right now becoming a prophet, because maybe that's what ends up happening in this game, Rob. But last thing for me, as far as defensive game plan goes, this just boils down to execution. We have not seen in the last 2 weeks, particularly the Giants game, we have not seen this defense swarming to the football with good pursuit angles the way that we saw the first 3 games. And that is really, to me, the biggest reason we have seen a regression in the tackling. Yeah, there's been some plays they haven't wrapped up, but a lot of it's been poor angles and not having support. They're not having their teammates come down to help out and swarm to the football. You have got to do that when you play the 49ers with players like Deebo Samuel and Jordan Mason and Brandon Ayuk that can create yardage after the catch, can break tackles. You have got to bring your hard hat in. You got to have teammates that are coming to support you. You got to swarm to the football, take good angles. If they can do that, that outweighs the X's and O's to me in this game. You have got to be able to fly to the football, limit yards after the catch, limit yards after contact on carries. And if you can do that, it gives you a much better chance to win this football game. When we come back, we got picks to click and, of course, our game predictions here on Game Plan Wednesday. Don't go away. You're listening to the Locked On Seahawks podcast. This episode is brought your way by our friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you check out the latest stats, view the play-by-play, and so much more. You can do it all on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. You can bet on everything from DK Metcalf scoring a touchdown against the 49ers or Deebo Samuel being the first player in Thursday's game with a 30-plus yard reception. Just throw in a $5 bet and you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. This episode is also brought your way by our friends at Hillsdale College. History, economics, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these in school? Maybe you did, maybe you don't. But it's time for a refresher. Time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it. Hillsdale College is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including, but not limited to, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper on readings, quizzes, and discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Welcome back to Game Plan Wednesday here on the Locked On Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s who are tuning in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. As we normally do on Friday, we have to do everything condensed this week with the Seahawks playing on Thursday night against the 49ers. We've got our picks to click and our game predictions. Let's go to our pick to click. And normally, Rob, this is a segment that Nick and I do, but Nick called in a pinch hitter. He is watching the San Diego Padres play as we speak. We know that that is truly his number one team. So Rob coming in as the pinch hitter. On the offensive side of the football, who is the player that you are expecting a big game from on the Seahawks on Thursday night?
Of course, I thought you were going to identify me as Fernando Tatis there for a second or something, considering the Padres stuff. But no, I think that the obvious headliner here for the Seahawks, if they're going to win this football game, then I think it's got to be Kenneth Walker III. We talked about it before, just the importance of getting the ground game going. Look, in my heart of hearts, I want to say a DK Metcalf or a Jackson Smith and Jigba. I want to say Geno Smith for that matter. I just think that Seattle is going to continue to have some problems in pass protection. Of course, they gave up 7 sacks to the Giants a week ago. And I think the 49ers are every bit as effective in their pass rush. Obviously, Nick Bosa, but to me, the easiest way to get going, the simplest, the straightest line, or I can't even think of the word, how you say that anymore, but basically the quickest way to get from point A to point B is in a straight line, and Kenneth Walker can hit that accelerator button as well as anybody in all of the NFL at the running back position. To me, this is a 49ers defense, as we talked about before. There are some gaps there. And so, again, I think if the Seahawks are going to win this football game, then Kenneth Walker is going to be the MVP.
I'm going to go with DK Metcalf, and I've got a couple reasons for that. One, I know that DK Metcalf is hurting from the 2 fumbles that he has had the last couple of weeks that came at crucial times, and he wants to have a bit of redemption here. And 2, he actually has got a decent track record of big plays against the 49ers. Even when Drew Lock played last year in that game in December in Santa Clara, he had a touchdown in the opening drive. He has gotten some big plays against Charvarius Ward before, and the secondary in general. You got 2 young safeties without Hufanga being out there. I feel like there's going to be the opportunity for a few big plays here. Now, that is based off of having a run game and having a little bit more balance. But I think that this is a secondary. I mean, the 49ers are giving up an 8.3% explosive rate, which is in the bottom half of the league. It's not the worst, but it's certainly not as good as it's been in recent years. There can be big plays against this team. And I just have a feeling DK Metcalf is going to be really motivated going into this game because of the mistakes he's had that may or may not have cost his team the last couple of weeks in close games. He is going to be looking for having a redemption game, and who better to do it against than the 49ers? On the defensive side of the football, who gets your pick to click? Who needs to click against the 49ers for the Seahawks to have a chance to win this one?
Well, as I talked about a moment ago, Corbin, I really think that it's going to be critical for the Seattle's defensive linemen to get their hands up and to be able to get a tipped ball, possible interception. So that's why I'm not going to go with a pass rusher to be able to create a whole bunch of sacks. As much as I want to say a Boye Mafe or a Derek Hall continuing his unbelievable sophomore season here in the NFL, I'm going to go with another quote-unquote sophomore, and that being, of course, Seattle's former number 5 overall pick, Devin Witherspoon. Look, I just think that Witherspoon has the playmaking ability, he has the instincts, he has the physicality, and I'm very curious to see how Seattle aligns Devin Witherspoon. He, of course, has played an awful lot of slot. He's also played the both left corner spot as well as the right corner spot. Seattle has moved him to every position in every game so far, and as we talked about in a previous episode this week about the 49ers, it's basically been kind of a pick your poison with the 49ers. There's been games where they have featured featured Ayuk. There's been games where they featured Jennings, games where they featured Deebo Samuel. And so I think that it's going to be on the Seahawks to basically try to move Devin Witherspoon around, make him that kind of joker that can be just about anywhere. And I think that's going to create possible sack opportunities. I also think that he has a chance to, of course, to create some type of a turnover with just how fierce of a hitter he is. And of course, the interception potential as well. So again, to me, kind of like Kenneth Walker III on offense, in my opinion, he is your best player, and he also has the best opportunity to kind of make the spectacular play that can win a football game. Devin Witherspoon on defense is the same way.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the defensive line with Leonard Williams, who one of the reasons I was excited about the trade last October for him was he has a good track record against the 49ers, including early last season, played really well against them when he was with the Giants. He's going to be in his second game back for a rib injury. He's had the last couple of days to continue to heal because he was not 100% when he played in this game on Sunday against his former team. But I expect that he is going to be healthier in this game, and there's going to be some motivation here for him. He was one of the guys that was disgusted by the overall effort from the team on Sunday. I think he is going to take that on his shoulders, and he is going to lead by example here. And I think if there's an area that you can beat the 49ers offensive line, it's in the interior with their center and their guards. They're not a bad group, but I feel like this is a game that Leonard Williams, if he can get back to what he was doing before his rib injury, he was off to a fantastic start. If he can get back to doing that, being disruptive, getting after Brock Purdy with interior pressure, that has a chance to be a game changer. So I'm looking for a big game from Leonard Williams here on Thursday Night Football. Okay, it's prediction time. And I'll admit, I've been kind of on the fence on this one, even before I went on Fox 13 on Monday. And those of you that watch the show, you know what my prediction is, or at least what it was on Monday night. This has been what I've been torn on just because both teams have not been playing that well the last couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of injuries for both teams. But Rob, going into this game, do the Seahawks have that bounce back win in them, or are they at 500 with a 3-game losing streak?
That's the unfortunate reality, but I do have a hard time imagining the Seahawks able to pull out this game just because of the fact that they have the injury problems that they do. The track record against the 49ers here in recent years, I think Seattle has to prove to me, they've got to prove it to themselves, quite frankly, if they can beat the 49ers. They're the big bully on the block right now. Until Seattle can do that, they've got to go with the 49ers. I just think that when it's all said and done, that the 49ers are a little bit more sound, a little bit healthier, with all due respect to Christian McCaffrey, obviously a significant loss, but at the same time, Jordan Mason has filled in so admirably there. And Brock Purdy, while the numbers don't suggest it, I think that he is playing pretty darn good football. I have the 49ers eking out a victory, 23-20.
Yeah, I've got a close game too, not quite as close as you do, but my concern, it lies in the run game. I don't know that the Seahawks can make improvements from Sunday to Thursday. I don't think they can make the improvements with some of the personnel that's missing. I really think they are missing Byron Murphy II a ton right now. And I think that has been a big reason that they have not been near successful the last couple of weeks defending the run. I think his presence is being missed. I think with the injuries they've got, there's going to be a better effort in this game. I think the Seahawks are going to come ready to play. I think Geno Smith's going to make some plays. I think the offense is going to get some things done. But I'm going to go with the 49ers putting up 30 and a 30-24 win over the Seahawks. I just think the way the Seahawks defense has played the last couple of weeks, all the pieces that they are missing, I'm worried about the run game. And when Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk gets the ball in their hands, or even George Kittle creating after the catch with some of the missed tackles that we've seen the last couple, I just can't see in a couple of days that magically getting much better. Maybe that happens, but I just think San Francisco's got a little too much on offense with the way the Seahawks are playing on defense. And so I think they keep it close. I think it's a competitive game, but I think the 49ers, unfortunately, are going to get this victory. Hopefully you and I are both wrong. We shall find out tomorrow night. As always, you can follow me on X and Threads at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Ring. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Don't forget, coming up tomorrow morning, we've got Crossover Thursday, a game day edition of Crossover Thursday. I'll be joining Eric Crocker of Locked On 49ers for another deep dive heading into tomorrow night's primetime NFC West matchup. Make sure you're listening in and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Go Hawks.